Okay, today is September 14th, class 8. Today in class we're going to review additional information on roofs and Revit, which will include how to create Soffit fascia gutters. We'll do ceilings, how to split walls, and how to paint today. And your midterm is September 30th. So just to review some information from the last class, am I sharing my screen? This would help. All right, there we go. All right, just to review information that I noticed that some people had questions about from the past assignments. I don't remember whose project this was, but I did notice this in a couple of different projects. Some of these, there's a gap in this wall that's not connected. So either this wall has a cut opening or a walk-through or pass-through, but we shouldn't ever leave like a gap like this in our walls. So let's go ahead and fix that. So I'm going to go to level 1. And at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and pull these walls together. I'm going to delete this wall. And then I'm going to grab this one over here, and I'm going to pull it over. But notice when I do that, it is not aligned with this exterior wall that it butts up against, so I can fix that too. I'm going to go to my Modify tab, and I'm going to use my Align tool. I'm going to make that active. I'm going to click on the side that I want it aligned to. It's not letting me do that. Let's see. Should be able to pick that. And if that doesn't work, we can just make this active and bump that up manually. Pull that together. So therefore, if we did have an opening that is supposed to be at this spot right here, like a door opening, we can go back to Architecture tab, go to the Door tool, go to Load Family, and to Doors. And there's an opening right here, door opening. And then we can just drop that where that needs to be. So when we do that, that's going to give us that walkthrough that we need. Otherwise, you're going to see that there's no wall on top of this door, and it just kind of goes all the way up. Sometimes you may have that as a design, and sometimes you may not. But for the most part, it's going to be something that looks like this. Or we would edit that wall to make it look the way we want to, much as we did in the last class. That's one thing that I saw. Also, some people had crop view on. You may have noticed that when your view looks like this. And it's just kind of chopped. Well, they have this one set to a larger view. But if you see this, and it looks where we can shorten this view port, and your 3D view looks like this, which I noticed in a couple of people's. We want to turn off these crop views. So if you do have this where your image is very stunted, go ahead and go to your Properties tab, scroll down to Extents, and unclick these two. And it's going to turn that crop view off for you. There's reasons that we use that, but for the most part, we're not going to. And you can see once we put these views back on, it's going to be the crop region, which will give you the size that you want it to be. And then when you actually do the crop view, it's going to cut everything out unless it's, you know, specifically what you want to view. So we can go ahead and just turn that off. So if you do have that as a note, please fix that. All right. And then lastly, I had a question that I had an issue about wall wraps. Let's go. Let me use this view. So one thing I do want you to notice on here when we're talking about wall wraps is that depending on how some of you have some of your models end with some of these walls, you'll notice that we have like gray color on top, and sometimes you may have a wall that is supposed to end like this, and you'll notice that we have a gray end right here, which doesn't look great, and when we do a rendering, it's going to show up like that. So we don't want it to look like that. In order to fix some of these end points on your walls, such as if you have a shorter wall or anything, we want to go ahead and make this wall active. Then we can go into our properties with edit type. And you'll notice in here in this first box, it says wrapping at inserts and wrapping at ends. So we can correct that. And if we want to change that to both, and especially on our exterior walls, depending on which way we want to wrap it. So if this is a brick wall, say I wanted to wrap the exterior. So that brick part wraps around that wall. I'm going to hit OK. I'll let it think for a bit. And you'll notice how that just swapped that gray out for, now I have that red brick color on top, and I have this brick wall finish on the end part of it. And you're not necessarily going to have to do this every time you create a wall. It just depends on the shape of your wall and how your wall ends. So if you do have a wall that's going to be exposed at the end, you want to go ahead and use that wrap end on there. And then usually if it's an interior wall and it's wrapped with gypsum on both ends, you don't have to worry about it that much. But if it is an exterior wall, you have to choose if you want the interior to wrap around or the exterior to wrap around. That's just a small thing that I noted, but it's kind of a good kind of detailed thing to know about. All right, so that pretty much wraps up all the reviews from last class. Oh, one other thing I do want to review, such as the shape of this house for roofs. Say you do have a patio over here, and some of you have had patios in this area, and then the roof extends over this patio, but the roof line is not how you want it to be. I want to show you how to cover this area with your roof line, so it follows the correct outline of the house, and it just doesn't go around here. So what I mean by that, let me do two roofs real quick and do a regular roof, and I'm just going to do a 2-foot overhang. So when I click around here, and even for this space here, I don't want two lines making up the side of the drawing. So I'm just going to click like this, and I want to close this area right here, and I want to close this here, so this is completely covered. So how would I do that? I'll use my corner tool, and I'll just click that interior angle, and then that'll cover this section right here. I don't have to put another roof line here. I don't have to put another roof line here. I can just close that off, and now this patio area will be covered. So I'm going to hit my green check mark. An angle. Well, this roof is set to a flat roof. So let's fix that real quick while I'm here. So remember, if we want to fix that, we can go to Edit Footprint. I'm going to click on this side of the roof. I'm going to turn that slope back on. I'm going to click on this side of the roof and turn this slope back on, which means now I'll have a slope here and a slope here, and I'll have a gable end on both of these ends right here. I'll hit my green check mark. Starting to look a little bit better now. It's still like not at all where it's supposed to be. Right now, this roof, and this is not the correct template to be using. This is not an architectural template, but we can still fix that. We can go ahead and take this roof, and we can change this from level 2, a top of the footing to level 2, and that'll put that roof right where we need to go. So we have something looking a little bit better. And the main point of this was just to show you how you can cover this section of this roof right here, cover this section. So in case you do have a patio that's kind of hanging out, you can't cover that. Any questions on what we just reviewed, or any questions from your model from last time? Okay, we'll go ahead and jump into class for today. So we're going to start off with more advanced roofs, which will include soffit, fascia, and gutters. So if we remember the diagram that we had last time that we reviewed, we'll know that a soffit is the part that covers underneath the rafters underneath the house. If you need a refresher on that, you can go to your files. And your roof information and your roof parts diagram. And remember that the soffit is this piece right here that runs from the exterior wall to the exterior roof line, and that covers those exposed rafters and beams right here. So how do we create that? So I'm going to go ahead and just, let's see. I'm just going to go ahead and throw on a roof on here real quick. Yes, I want this attached to level 2. I'm going to set a 3-foot overhang. And I'm going to hit my check mark. Let's go to 3D and take a look at it. Looks pretty good. I have this weird thing on the slabs right here because I'm going to show y'all something else. So that's why that looks weird. All right, so what are we talking about when we're creating this soffit? We're creating that space that runs from this exterior wall line to the exterior roof line. So it's going to cover this space right here that's exposed. So I'm going to go to my level 2. And I can see my house here. I can see the interior. I can see the walls when I come over it like that. So I'm going to go from this view right here, and I'm going to go to my architecture tab, my build panel, and my roof tool. This time I'm going to do my drop down, and I'm going to use the soffit tool. So there's 2 things that we basically want to draw. We want to pick it's going to default to boundary lines, picking the walls. So we can use that. We can pick the wall line. But we also want to select the exterior roof line as well. So this is basically picking the exterior wall to the exterior roof line, and it's going to create that soffit right around underneath the underside of this roof. So at this time, I'm going to hit my green check mark. I'm going to go to 3D, see what happened. Now I've got something kind of weird that looks like this. So there's my soffit. If I hide my roof, I'll take a better look at it. Notice it just runs between the exterior wall and the exterior roof line. I'll go ahead and put the roof back now. I just wanted you to see the shape of that. But if we highlight this soffit and we take a closer look at it, the default soffit that is created in our properties is a roof soffit. It's a generic 4-inch. You're never really going to see a 4-inch soffit. Usually that's going to be the thickness of a tube of plywood, which is 1/2 inch. Or it's, a lot of soffits they use now are even like the aluminum siding or that plastic siding. So I'm not too worried about you using the default here. If you did want to change this to something more accurate, what we can do is we can look and see what they have available. The only thing is the generic 4 inches available. But if we did want to change that to make it more similar to the what you have on your house right now, we go into edit type. We would duplicate this. I'll just call it soffit in your initials. At this time, we can go into edit. And if we change that to 1/2 inch, you can leave that as structure, and then you can change this to wood or plastic, whatever you wanted it to do, whatever kind of material you wanted it to create. We'll just use plywood sheathing for now. use render appearance, and OK. And notice how it changed the thickness of that. So we went from a 4-inch thick soffit to a 1/2-inch soffit. So the other weird thing about this right now is it is attached to level 2. Notice we have a level constraint, level 2. We zoom out here, we can see our level 2, and it's attached to that. So it's hanging out up here, and it needs to be underneath the house, underneath that roof, underneath the roof line. So we're going to offset that down. And I'm just trying to think of 18 inches. Still not low enough. You have to take into account the diagonal of the roof line and how thick the roof is. So there's no set number measurement that this is going to be all the time. Oops. See, I did positive instead of negative, so I went up. -2 feet. I can still go down a couple of inches. I think it is 2 foot 4 inches. 2'3". Better. Okay, good. Now when we take a look at that, there's our soffit right there. So our soffit's right where we want it to go. You know it's in place, obviously, because we changed the material. That's Sept plywood sheathing. And then also if we take this and we highlight it and we hide it, it changes the view of that. So that way you know it's there. Let me do that one more time and show you some of the errors that sometimes are made when people create their soffit. I'll put this back. I'm going to leave this one in place and then just start a brand new one. So once again, let's go to level 2. So if we were going to create a soffit, remember, we're going to go to Architecture tab, Build Panel, Roof Tool, down to Soffit Tool. We're going to go ahead and start with that generic 4-inch again and just leave it at that. And a lot of times people just go ahead and use the boundary line and the pick wall line and then just leave it at that. So what happens then? Let's hit the green check mark. Let's go to 3D. Okay, weird, we don't see anything. So I'll be like, let me hide my roof and see what happened. Oh, I hit the wrong thing. Roof. I'm just created 2 roofs. So this is a soffit I created before, and this is a soffit I just created now. And it created this shape because, remember, I just picked that wall line. I didn't have that exterior roof line that I picked. So I still have this kind of soffit hanging out here. So how do I fix that? Once again, we can highlight that. We can go to Edit Boundary. And with our roof back on, I can go ahead and use my Pick Lines tool, and I'm going to pick my exterior roof and hit my green check mark. And when I go back, I've created that new soffit to look like the other one. I just left it at that other color, that new one, so you can see the difference. But it basically just runs, think of it on this as like a picture frame that runs around the outside of the house. But the soffit has a very particular function. It's not just decorative. Any questions about soffits? I find out of the advanced roof stuff, soffits are the things that give people the most trouble. So practice that a couple of times. Just remember that you have to pick the exterior wall line and the exterior roof line around the roof in order to create that soffit. And then you just have to adjust the elevation of it to cover the roof. Let's reset that. And connect my walls again. Remember, to connect walls, you can highlight one, make it active, right click. We can do select all instances. visible in view. It will highlight all of those, and at that time, with all of those active, I'll hit attach top to base, highlight the roof, and then it'll just kind of pull that together there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and delete this soffit because I don't need that. And now let's go ahead and put on fascia and gutters. These are pretty easy compared to the other one. The main thing to remember when you're adding your fascia and your gutters is the line, the location line that you're adding them on. So in order to do that, we're going to go back to our roof tool drop down. We're going to pick fascia this time. And remember, fascia is this piece that goes over the front of the rafters to cover that. So notice when I kind of come over here, there's a couple of different lines. The fascia is always going to be on this top roof line. And notice how it just kind of covers up that area there. Some of the mistakes that we see on that are people just kind of picking the wrong line where that's going to go. And you'll have fascia that's down here. But when you're creating the fascia, you always want to make sure it's up here. Then if you create all the fascia at one time in one go, if you have to delete a piece, then it'll delete all of it. But if we go back to fascia again, this one, the default, there's only one default fascia in here, so 1x12. If we wanted to create our own, you could do the same thing. You could do go into edit, duplicate and rename, and create it to the parameters that you want it to. You do not have to do that on the fascia here. We just use the default. So let's go ahead and finish the fascia at this time. We'll go ahead and, oops, cancel it. I tried to put two fascia on top of each other, which is why it gave me that default. Now, these particular defaults, you'll notice that it doesn't look great. We've got like the soffit down here. Technically, the fascia should cover all of this, so we can correct that. A couple of different things that we can do. We have to manipulate a lot of other stuff, but we can click on this roof, make it active. Remember, we use the default 12-inch. If we change that to 9 inches, it just kind of pulls that together like that. And that looks a lot better. So if you want to use the 9-inch roof, that's fine. But no, if you are using the 12-inch, it is going to look a little different. So this is actually looking much better. So the next thing we want to do on here is add our gutters. So once again, we're going to go to our roof tool, drop down, and pick our gutter tool. And we're just going to attach this the same way we did the fascia. Once again, the most important thing to remember is where we are placing the gutter. It's going to go on the exterior location line of the fascia, this one, not this one. So it should look like this. You can see our gutter right there. If I add this one right here, it's just going to close up that corner right there. Really nice corner tool. Looks good. Some of the errors that we see when the gutters are added are this one right here, where the gutter is on the bottom. Remember, the function of the gutter is to carry the water away from the house. It's the water's coming down the roof and it's going into the gutter. If the gutter is placed down here, it's going to go over that fascia. There's all sorts of water infiltration problems that you can have if it comes down here. That's why it's real important to have the gutters on the top line of this. So just pay attention to that when you lay them out. Another error in gutter placements is people picking the interior fascia line. Obviously, you're just like, oh, I just put my gutter there. What happened to it? And then people will go back and put it on again. But what's actually happened there is if we highlight that, now you have a gutter on the inside line of the house and the outside. So just a couple of things to pay attention to when you're laying out gutters and fascia. Just make sure the line that you're attaching them to. So we'll go ahead and delete all the gutters again. And we'll lay them out properly this time. So once again, to do gutters, architecture tab, build panel, drop down on the roof tool, gutter tool, and we're just picking the top exterior location line on the fascia for our gutters. And there we have our completed roof with our soffit fascia and gutters on. Any questions, y'all? Okay. Yes.
Yes. So 2 questions.
Uh-huh.
If we had a gable roof, would we have to do anything special to the soffit for it to follow that angle, or will it just?
Yes, that's a great question. Yes, thank you for asking that. Okay, that's a good question. Was that it, Dakota, or I didn't mean to cut you off?
Yes, that was Dakota.
Cool. All right, so if we so I'm going to delete the gutters and the fascia on this in order to create this as a gable. So I'm going to change this side of the house to a gable roof. And remember, in order to do that, I can just click on the roof, make it active, go to edit footprint. If I highlight this roof line, all I want to do is turn off the defined slope at this time, and I'm going to hit my green check mark. So that changes that side of the roof to a gable roof. And notice when we do that, our soffit looks really weird. We still have this soffit line that runs along there, which is not what we want. We want to go ahead and edit that soffit at this point. We can click on the soffit, make it active. I'm going to do edit boundary. And at this point, what I want to do is I want to eliminate this front part of the soffit. So it's actually going to be like an inverted U. So I'm just going to change my geometry on this. Use my corner tool to trim this one off. I'm going to use my line tool here. Remember, I can use my corner tool, or I can just grab this and drag it back. So now, actually, I do want this up here towards the front. So now, soffit is going to follow the shape that I created. So now when I hit my green check mark, and I take a look at it, the soffit just follows that shape, so we don't have it up there. It's still going to give us the cover on this underneath the roof where we need it to be for the rafters. And in a more advanced class, what we would do is we could create, there's a couple of different ways we can do it. We can create a tiny little roof wall section to cover up this spot right here so it looks complete. Or if we were doing a more advanced class, we would create our own family in order to close off this area right here. There's not a default, an easy default to do that. That's why it looks a little weird on gable roofs with the soffit on there. But this way, you at least know that you can change the shape of the soffit to make it follow the geometry that you want it to. So what we would do for the fascia and gutters on this one. So fascia is still just going to go on this gabled area. And of course, you know, we don't put gutters on this gabled area because that wouldn't make any sense, because the rain water is not going to flow into them. It catches them on the downspout. And you see what this kind of closes off. So the only problem with the gable when we create the soffit is this open area right here. So remember, if you created a new wall section, we could make that shape follow in this space right here. If that's something that you want to do, let's talk outside class, because we don't really go into that too much, but I can show you how to do that later if anyone wants to. Any other questions about roofs?
And then my other question was if the gutter doesn't run the full length of the that wall or that roof.
Of this roof?
Yeah, like if it were to connect to like another roof or something, it would just stop and go down to another gutter.
If it's followed to another route, okay. Let's see. Let me get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Because usually, yeah. Let me get back to you on that.
Yeah, we have a flat roof and a gable roof, so it's a lot of weird geometry going on there.
Okay. Yeah, I'll need to get back to you on that one. That hasn't really come up before. So.
No problem.
Any other questions?
Will you be regrading past assignments? I had resubmitted my week 2 model, and I just wanted to like get some feedback on it at some point.
Oh yeah, Ray, I did want to talk to you after class about that. I had a question about that, and I did put a note on the last one for us to chat because I think there was just some confusion on my part about which one it was resubmitted. So, but yeah, let's talk after this class.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks. All right. Anything else on this? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do ceilings and then split walls and split paint. They're still trying to fix my Zoom contract on here. So just let's go ahead and just do ceilings, and then we'll drop, and then we'll start, and then we start again. So for ceilings, they're pretty easy. Ceilings, let's drop down to ceiling plan level 1. That's going to give us this area right here. Let me throw in another wall here real quick. So ceiling level 1. So for that, we're going to architecture tab, build panel, ceiling tool. On ceiling tool, when we click that, the automatic default is going to be to automatic ceiling and to a compound ceiling 2x4 inch ACT, which means acoustical ceiling tile system, similar to what you would see in a commercial building. Obviously, we're not going to have acoustical ceiling tiles in our house, so we can use a generic, and then we can go into edit type, and you can change the material to gypboard. User under appearance, and okay. And okay. And since it's defaults to automatic ceiling, notice that when I come over this area right here, it gives me the area of the room. And if I just click there, notice how that roof geometry, that roof shape disappeared, and now that roof, that ceiling is in place right now. So if I go to 3D, I'm not going to finish that other one yet. I just kind of want to show you this first. If I go to 3D, you can see that my ceiling is in place there. If I click on that, make it active. If we notice that height offset is set to level 1 and the height offset is 8 foot, say if you had 9 foot ceilings, you could change that to 9 foot or whatever size that you wanted it to. Remember, the height of our walls right now is 10 foot, so that's the highest that you would be able to go to. If not, say if you did like, if you like, I have 12 foot ceilings. Obviously that would not work because it's kind of like dangling up here in the air. We would have to change a lot of stuff. That's stuff that we would have planned out before we actually put the ceiling in place. But you can't change the level of the ceiling just based on this height offset right here. So let me just put that back to 8 foot for now. And I'm going to go back to my ceiling level 2 and show you another way to create ceilings. A lot of times you'll have like a open ceiling plan. Say if I had a balcony over here and then this part was open, and if I wanted to do that, this time I would go to my ceiling tool, and instead of automatic ceiling that's going to cover that entire space, I would do sketch ceiling. And I can use my draw tool to just draw the shape of the ceiling I want. And let's go to 3D. And there's that shape of the ceiling. This is kind of a cool tool to use, especially in like commercial buildings.